On Christmas Eve, I noticed the family portrait gleaming in its polished frame. My face had been neatly cut out. The next day, no one brought it up. I slid an envelope into my parents' hands and murmured, "Don't open this yet." Of course, they ignored me and tore it open anyway. My mom instantly dissolved into tears while the color drained from my dad's cheeks. I'd love to say it blindsided me, like some shocking twist in the finale of an emotional drama. But honestly, it wasn't a surprise. It felt less like betrayal and more like destiny. As if this ending had always been waiting for me. When I stepped into my parents' living room, snow clung to my boots as I scraped them clean on the mat. My eyes lifted, and there it was, the photo enlarged, glossy, professionally framed and proudly displayed right above the fireplace like it was the crown jewel of our family legacy. Everyone else was there. My mom radiant in her trademark red blazer, smiling like she hadn't spent years dismissing anything that revolved around me. My dad, frozen in that forced grin he usually saves for staged photos and golf course snapshots. And my sister, front and center as always, wearing a beige turtleneck that probably costs more than I make in a month. She struck her classic spontaneous pose, laughing at nothing in particular, perfectly composed, effortlessly charming, most likely tossing out a clever remark about her trust fund. But me, I was nowhere in sight, not even shoved awkwardly at the edge, not lurking in the background, just gone. It wasn't some lazy edit. It was precise, intentional, a clean removal, like they had taken scissors to their history and trimmed me out with care. No jagged lines, no shadow left behind, just erased. I stared at it for maybe 4 or 5 seconds, long enough for the knot in my stomach to tighten, not long enough for anyone to notice. Or maybe they did notice and decided not to bother. Dinner's almost ready. Mom called cheerfully from the kitchen, her voice light and casual, as if nothing were wrong, as if we were some glassy magazine version of a family. The air smelled of rosemary and lemon, drifting from whatever dish she had roasting, scents that once wrapped me in warmth, back when they carried real comfort before they turned hollow. I hung my coat on the rack, offered a half-hearted greeting, and stepped into the kitchen. And there was my sister, of course, already stationed with a wine glass in hand, swilling it like she was hosting a holiday feature on pairings. She leaned in for her trademark air kiss, close enough to signal affection, but careful never to touch. "You made it," she said, like I was late to her personal celebration, like this was her house. I didn't answer, just smiled, that tired kind of smile you give after spending nights screaming into a pillow 3 times in 1 month until you decide your voice no longer deserves to be heard. Dinner played out like a rehearsed scene. Dad sliced the roast with exaggerated care as though hoping for a role in a holiday commercial. Mom praised my sister's glowing skin twice. No one asked how I'd been. No one inquired where I lived or what I was up to. The only question directed my way was whether I still had that little car, which of course is code for we haven't the faintest idea what's happening in your life, and we're hoping you'll offer details so we can pretend we're interested. I didn't take the bait. Instead, I watched my sister open a small box from Mom and Dad. A neatly wrapped gift, a vintage gold watch. Nothing extravagant, Mom insisted, which would have been funny if the folded receipt hadn't been tucked beneath the tissue paper. And yes, I saw the price. I'd have to work a week and a half to afford it. And that's assuming I skipped groceries. Oh my god, you guys, my sister beamed. "This is just wow, that you'd like it," Dad said, grinning like he'd just secured a merger. Meanwhile, I got a mug that said somebody's favorite daughter, which I'm sure was meant to be ironic. Or was it hard to say? I excused myself after dessert, said I was tired. Mom offered me the guest room. Not my room, not your old room, just the guest room. Base sheets, dusty bookshelf, one lamp that flickered. If you breathed too close to it, I shut the door behind me, turned on the lamp, which flickered on cue, and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when I pulled out the envelope. It had been sitting in my bag the whole time. Thick ivory paper, embossed seal, I thought about giving it to them in the morning. After the stockings, after the cinnamon rolls, after the performance, but standing in that living room looking at that photo, seeing my entire existence airbrushed out like a glitch in the family algorithm, yeah, I changed my mind. They didn't just forget me. They erased me carefully, strategically, like I'd been a bad brand partnership. I turned the envelope over in my hands. It felt heavy that night. I lay in bed and let the house settle around me. Same creaky floorboards, same ticking wall clock. Somewhere in the hall, my dad was snoring. My mom's voice drifted up once. Something about bringing the good plates tomorrow. My sister laughed in that practiced breathy way of hers, the Golden Child soundtrack. I closed my eyes and thought about the years, the time I got into my dream college, and they said, "We're so proud," before immediately asking if I could defer a year so they could help my sister with her portfolio. The time I missed rent and called home and dad said things are tight right now while planning a cruise. For her birthday, the time I brought home a boyfriend and they forgot his name at dinner. He never came back. I didn't blame him. I was tired of telling myself I was just sensitive. Tired of pretending I misunderstood that night lying in a bed that was supposed to feel familiar. But didn't. I stopped making excuses tomorrow. I would give them the envelope. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't even raise my voice. I'd just smile, say, "Merry Christmas," and watch the truth. Do what years of silence never could. I woke up to the smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls and the faint sound of my sister's voice saying something about luggage, weight limits, and how stressful travel is, honestly. The irony, of course, being that she wasn't the one paying for her travel or her luggage or the suitcase or the shoes inside the suitcase that cost more than my monthly rent. But yes, devastating stuff. Cue the sigh and pout. Stayed in the guest room a little longer than necessary, not because I was still tired, but because I wasn't in the mood to walk back into the sitcom set that was my family's idea of Christmas. I could already imagine the fake laughter, the overcooked optimism, and someone, probably my mom, saying something like, "Isn't it nice having everyone together as if everyone included me?" As if I hadn't spent the last decade as the human equivalent of a blurry background character in every family memory. When I finally wandered into the kitchen, my mother was plating scrambled eggs like she was auditioning for a brunch spread in a lifestyle magazine. My dad sat at the table, scrolling through his phone. My sister was barefoot sipping almond milk from a wine glass. "Good morning," my mom said, not looking up. "Hope you slept okay in the guest room. The mattress has a personality," I said, pouring myself some coffee. She laughed like I was joking. "Wasn't we made it through breakfast the way we always did? Performing? There was no catching up. No one asked about my job, or how I was doing, or whether I was still living in that small apartment with the creaky stairs, which for the record, I wasn't. My sister talked about her upcoming trip Barcelona this time and how she was so lucky to have parents who supported her dreams. I didn't say anything, just nodded along like a seat filler at an award show. They still hadn't noticed the envelope sitting in my coat pocket that would come later. Instead, I let my thoughts drift backward to everything that led up to this moment when I graduated high school. I got a scholarship. Not a full ride, but enough to make it possible if I picked up part-time work. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, paperwork spread out, asking if they could help with the rest. Just a little. My mom gave me this look like I'd asked to borrow her wedding ring to pawn. Dad said something about tough timing, and we're still catching up from the bathroom remodel. The same remodel. That fun fact included heated floors and a bathtub with Bluetooth. 2 months later, my sister got a new car for her 18th birthday. Wet leather seats, custom stereo, a bow on top. She cried when they handed her the keys. Told them they were the best parents in the world. I stood next to the recycling bin holding a $20 bill tucked inside a graduation card that said, "You're going places." And you know what? I still left for college. Took 3 jobs. Slept for hours a night. ate too much, instant ramen, graduated with honors, moved to a new city, started over. I didn't ask them for anything after that, and they didn't offer. When I was laid off 2 years ago, I didn't call when I was sick and couldn't afford the medication my doctor prescribed. I didn't ask when my apartment flooded and I lost most of my furniture. I bought a used mattress off Craigslist and made do. Meanwhile, my sister posted Instagram stories from Santorini sponsored. Obviously, I used to wonder if maybe it was me. Maybe I was just harder to love, more reserved, less shiny. Maybe I should have joined a sorority, smiled more worn, more bitch. Maybe if I played piano instead of working shifts at a diner, they would have noticed me. Maybe if I hadn't made things so easy, always independent, always fine, they would have realized I needed help too. But then I remembered my 8th birthday. I had invited 6 kids over, baked cupcakes myself. Mom forgot to pick up the pizza, so we ate cheese slices on saltines. My sister had a dance recital the next day, so the whole thing ended early. They told me, "We'll make it up to you next year." They never did. Or the time I won a state science competition, my school called home to tell them. They sent back a text, "Nice job, smiley face." That was it. No dinner, no frame certificate, no mention of it ever again. My sister landed a minor role in a shampoo commercial, and they threw her a party with balloons and a custom cake that said future star. So no, it wasn't me. It was never me. The shift came earlier this year. I hadn't gone looking for anything that day. Not really. I was at the local records office for something entirely mundane. Just a proof of address I needed for a job application. Routine forms, government red tape, nothing more. But while flipping through the paperwork, something unexpected caught my eye. A file with my name on it connected to a property I had never heard of. At first, I dismissed it as a mistake, probably just another person with the same name. But curiosity crept in, the kind that never really lets go. And before I knew it, I was pulling on the loose thread. A few small requests here, some online searches there, emails crafted carefully to avoid suspicion. The deeper I dug, the more tangled it became. Secrets, pieces of my life that had been tucked away, hidden on purpose. And at the very center of all those buried truths was me. I didn't explode, didn't storm in demanding answers. I simply watched the same way I'd always done. Only this time I wasn't powerless. This time I had documents, records, proof carved in black and white. And as I sifted through it all, something unexpected washed over me, calm. It felt like I'd been trapped underwater my entire life without realizing it, and suddenly, my lungs had learned how to breathe again. They hadn't merely overlooked me, they had exploited me, my name, my rights, and worst of all, my silence. But those days were finished. Now I had leverage. Something they would be forced to face, something they could never sweep aside. That morning, after breakfast, I went upstairs to change. I moved slowly, deliberately, giving them time to settle into their holiday ritual, gathering by the tree, tearing open presents, soaking in the carefully staged joy they loved to show the world. By the time I came back down, they were already in full swing. My sister was unwrapping something extravagant, her fake surprise dialed up for effect. My mom wore that watery-eyed expression she always kept ready for the moments she'd later polish and post online. My dad looked over at me and asked, "Get any rest last night?" I gave a small smile. "Enough." He nodded once, then returned his attention to my sister as she squealed over a luxury handbag. I eased into a chair, slipped my hand into my coat pocket, and placed an envelope on the table, half hidden among coffee cups and ripped paper. No one noticed at first, but eventually they always did, always a little too late. Nearly 10 minutes passed before my mom spotted it. Or rather, she noticed that something unfamiliar was lying on her pristine reclaimed wood table. God forbid anything rests there without a coaster or a clear purpose. She picked it up gingerly, like it might be a misdelivered bill or an invitation. that had landed in the wrong house. What's this? She asked, directing the question to the room at large. Not to me. I let the silence hang, sipped my coffee, and finally answered, It's from me. My dad glanced up, hands still brushing stray bits of wrapping paper aside, as though another gift might be hiding beneath them. You didn't have to get us anything, he said lightly, his smile the kind you give when you're handed a corny novelty mug with a quote on it. I know, I said evenly. I wanted to. That changed the air. My mom sat back down, turning the envelope over and over in her hands. Should we open it now? She asked. I gave the faintest shrug. I'd rather you didn't. So, of course, they opened it. Anyway, my dad leaned in over her shoulder as she carefully broke the seal, and for a few moments, the only sounds were the soft sliding of pages and the faint crinkle of paper shifting in her hands. I watched my sister fold the handles of her new designer tote just so, like it was a newborn she just named after a French city. Then the silence changed. It thickened. I didn't even have to look up. I could feel it. Something between realization and nausea, like the exact moment you realize the milk in your coffee is sour, right after you've swallowed. My dad let out a breath through his nose. My mom's eyes were scanning faster now, flipping to the second page, the third, like she could outrun what she was reading. My sister looked over. What is it? They didn't answer. She tried again a little louder. What's going on? Still nothing. That was my cue. I figured it was time. You knew, I said, standing up slowly. Merry Christmas. What is this? My mom finally asked. Her voice was quiet, flat, not angry, not confused, just blank. That I said is a copy of Grandpa's will. She blinked. I've seen his will. We handled the estate. No. I said you handled what you told me was the estate. You never showed me the full will, just said he left a few keepsakes and some cash that went toward funeral expenses. He blinked too much, like he was stalling for time. That version didn't mention the rental property in Old Briar, I continued, probably because you were already collecting rent from it by then. My dad dropped the papers on the table like they'd burnt him. Where did you get this? Oh, you know, I said, public records, title searches, tax filings, archived emails, a couple phone calls, a very patient lawyer. My sister finally stood up. Wait, what rental property? The one by the park. I turned to her. The one you used for that photo shoot last year. Yeah, that one. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. My mom finally found her voice again. Sweetheart, this isn't what it looks like. I smiled. That's funny because it looks like you used my name, my inheritance, and my legal rights to fund your lifestyle while telling me there was nothing left for me. It wasn't like that, she said too quickly. It was complicated. It wasn't, I replied. The will is extremely clear. The house was left to me. Sole beneficiary, full title, transferred. Which means all the rent you've been collecting technically, stolen, and the renovations unauthorized. My dad rubbed his temples like this conversation was giving him a migraine. I hoped it was. I knew you wouldn't understand, he muttered. You're always so dramatic. That got a laugh out of me, right? I'm dramatic. You edited me out of a family portrait and committed inheritance fraud. But sure, let's blame my tone. My sister looked genuinely confused now, like someone had pulled the rug out from under her, and she still hadn't hit the floor. But the house paid for my tuition. I know, I said, and the car and the Mexico trip, and probably a few handbags along the way. That's not fair, she snapped. You didn't need it. You were always the independent one. You never asked for help because I was told there was nothing to ask for, I said. You made sure of that. My mom's voice shifted into soft, careful territory, the same tone she used when trying to return something at a boutique without a receipt. We didn't think you'd want the responsibility. You were busy. You were always so far away. I was far away, I said, because you made it very clear I wasn't. Well, come here. Dad pushed back his chair. You need to calm down, and you, I said, turning to him. Need a lawyer? He froze. I'm not suing, I added yet. but I've officially reclaimed ownership of the property. The tenants have been notified. Rent payments will now go to me. Your access to the house is revoked. My mom looked like she might cry. But that house was our income. We depended on that. I tilted my head. Then maybe you shouldn't have stolen it. We're family, she whispered. No, I said. You're people I used to be related to. There's a difference. My sister crossed her arms. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said. Just not beneath you anymore. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring a little. No one moved. No one breathed. My dad stared at the envelope like it might explode. My mom's face had gone slack. My sister looked like she couldn't process that the spotlight wasn't on her. Awake, I picked up my coat. Wait, my mom said, standing. Can't we at least talk about this? You just did. I said, for years. Every time you made a decision without me, every time you left me out, every time you told me I'd understand someday. Dad's jaw was tight. If you leave now, don't bother coming back. I paused at the door, turned to look at them one last time. I think that's the first thing we've agreed on. And then I left. The air outside was sharp, cold, but clean. It hit my lungs like a reminder that I was still here, still standing, still real. I slid behind the wheel of my car, let the engine hum to life, and drove. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. And sometimes the loudest scream is walking away. 3 weeks passed before the first message came through. It was from my mom, short, polite, polished, like she'd rewritten it 5 times and still wasn't sure it would land. His sweetheart. We've been talking and we think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we chat sometime this week? Hope you're well, love you. No punctuation at the end, just love you, hanging there awkwardly like a coat on the wrong hook. I didn't respond to days later. Another one. Please don't let this one thing ruin everything. Your sister is very upset. Dad's trying to stay calm, but you know how he gets when he feels blindsided. Oh yes, when he feels blindsided. Not when he commits fraud. Not when he lies to his daughter for years. No, feels blindsided. Poor guy. So I said nothing. Then came a voicemail from my dad. I didn't listen to it. I just stared at the notification and deleted it the last time he called me kiddo. It was when I offered to help him set up his retirement account and he said, let's leave the money stuff to people who understand it, right? Like him. Then came the email from my sister. You really think this makes you the winner? Fine, take the house. But don't come crying back when you realize money doesn't buy family. Followed by another message a day later. Mom and Dad are really stressed. They're talking about selling the condo. That's what you wanted. Congrats. That one I read twice. Not because I felt bad, but because I wanted to make sure I understood just how much the loss of my property was unraveling the family finances. Turns out the house had been the backbone of everything. Rent from 3 units covered their mortgage, their vacations, a chunk of my sister's education, and apparently even some cosmetic work my mom swore was just really good skincare. When I took it back, the whole machine sputtered and I hadn't even started asking for back rent. Not yet by spring. I started hearing whispers through mutual acquaintances. A neighbor mentioned my parents were trying to refinance their condo. Another said my dad had taken up consulting, which I knew meant cold calling old clients and hoping one of them still owed him a favor. My mom picked up weekend shifts at a boutique downtown, the kind of place where she used to shop. Now she rang up yoga pants for influencers and probably told herself it was temporary. My sister back living at home. The apartment in the city was too expensive. The clients dried up. Her art collective had disbanded or imploded. It was hard to tell which. And frankly, I didn't care. The GoFundMe she launched for a new creative chapter raised a grand total of $83. 2 of those dollars were from my ex-boyfriend. I don't know why the detail made me laugh, but it did. Meanwhile, I fixed up the house. My house. It was dusty at first, a little unloved, but solid. I hired a contractor to touch up the paint, replaced the old windows. I cleared out the furniture my parents had stored there and donated most of it, kept one chair, a navy blue armchair that I vaguely remembered from my childhood, the only piece that didn't feel like it came with strings attached. The tenants were kind. One of them left me a thank you note after I lowered their rent by $50, said I was the first landlord who treated them like a human being. That meant more to me than any of my parents' recycled apologies ever could. It's funny the things you start to notice when the noise dies down. The silence, once heavy and personal, becomes peaceful, like space you finally get to stretch into. I stopped checking my phone every hour, stopped waiting for the next guilt-laced message. I began sleeping through the night. Then one afternoon, I discovered a letter in my mailbox. Not a text, not an email, a real letter addressed in my mom's handwriting. I held the envelope in my hands for a long while before opening it, not because I thought it contained anything sincere, but because I wanted to remember that moment. The paper still carried traces of her perfume. Inside were two carefully written pages filled with lines like, "We didn't know, it wasn't intentional. We only wanted what was best for everyone." My personal favorite read, "You've always been so strong. We never realized you might need us." That's what people say when your silence serves them, when your distance makes their lives easier, and they're searching for an excuse for why they never once asked why you kept pulling away. She ended with, "We hope someday you'll come back home. Maybe we can begin again. Maybe we can still be a family." Not a single mention of repayment. No recognition of the stolen money, the lies, or the fact that I'd literally been cut out of the family portrait like someone erased from memory. An ex no one dares to mention. I placed the letter into a drawer. Didn't answer it. Didn't destroy it either. That was the last time she reached out to me directly. 3 years later, I bumped into an old neighbor at a bookstore. She asked if I was still taking care of the property. I smiled. "Yes, still am." She hesitated for a moment, then said, "I heard your parents went through some rough times." I stayed quiet. She gave a small nod before adding, "Well, you look happy, and that's what matters." And she was right. I was happy. I am happy. I still live in that house. Not because I have to, not out of spite, but simply because it gives me peace. It belongs to me. Now I wake to birds' song and soft sunlight instead of heavy footsteps in the hallway and sharp remarks about how I never call. I rebuilt the garden out back, repainted the front steps, lined the windowsills with plants, the kind that flourished with light and little else. On my mantel sits a photograph. Me standing proudly in front of the house, keys in my hand. No one else in the frame, only me. It's my favorite picture because for once, nothing needed to be cut out. I still hear from them every so often. A message forwarded through someone else, a cousin's quick note, a Christmas card that reads simply, "Thinking of you, hope you're well," no return address. I never reply, and strangely, I'm no longer angry. I'm not holding out for justice or closure or even an apology, because I already have what they never could give me. My name etched onto something lasting. A place that is mine, a life I own. There was a time I truly believed that if I worked hard enough, if I just earned it, maybe they would finally love me the way they loved her. But love, real love, isn't something you fight to earn. It's given freely. What they offered was conditional. What I've given myself is everything they withheld. So, no, I don't miss them. I don't replay old arguments. I don't daydream about grand reunions or perfect apologies that magically rewrite the past because I've already rewritten it. The life I hold now didn't come gift wrapped with approval. It came from doing the hardest thing of all, walking away. And that, as it turns out, was the only gift I ever truly needed.